What's up, guys? We got UFC Mexico City Moreno versus Erceg full card recap, and I'm excited for this week's recap. We ended up sweeping the entire card, and majority of the fights ended up going exactly as planned. So I'm excited to get into today's video, and let's go ahead and jump right into it with the first bout of the night being Marquel Mederos versus Austin Hubbard. And I had Marquel Mederos to beat Austin Hubbard. And he did exactly that. And he did so in tremendous fashion. In the first round, he came out quickly and swiftly and was able to close the distance on Austin Hubbard, really tagging him up with the clean inside boxing of his. Not to mention use those kicks on the outside, really mixing it up to the head, to the body, and to the calves of Austin Hubbard, really working the base of Austin Hubbard, and really just picking him apart that entire first round. Austin Hubbard really didn't do much. He had a takedown late in the first round at the last 30 seconds and had some peppering shots here and there. But ultimately, it was Marquel Mederos absolutely working him in that first round and picking him apart. Then comes the second round, where there's a little bit of a turn in tides. It was Austin Hubbard getting the better of Marquel Mederos in terms of grappling. He timed a timely takedown, took down Marquel Mederos, and started garnering that control time and started maintaining control of Marquel Mederos. Mederos wasn't really able to create that space and get back up to his feet until about 3 minutes into the grasp of Austin Hubbard. Eventually got back up to his feet, but it was a little bit too little, too late, in which I feel like Austin Hubbard got the better of Marquel Mederos in that second round, tagging him with some nice strikes in the mix of grappling and garnering that control time in that second round. Then comes the third round, and it really seemed like Austin Hubbard was about to start taking over and start really getting the better of Marquel Mederos because of the pace and the pressure that he applies to his opponents. Especially here against Mederos, you could see him in that second round starting to fade. But then third round comes and Austin Hubbard lands a key takedown, but really it was because of the side of Mederos trying to attempt a ghillie as Austin Hubbard took him down, in which I feel like that was a huge low IQ move from Mederos. But even with that low IQ move, he ended up getting up after 2 minutes of control time from Austin Hubbard, ended up making the best of that interaction and ended up piecing and picking apart Austin Hubbard. Started landing some nice clean elbows that ended up slicing open Austin Hubbard and had him leaking in the third round. And I feel like that was really when the tide kind of changed and really started favoring the side of Mederos. As soon as he made Austin Hubbard leak, his striking started to pick up, his pace started to pick up, his pressure started to pick up, and he started to pick and piece apart Austin Hubbard in that third round, ultimately getting the better of him and winning via split decision 29-28 over Austin Hubbard, and looked phenomenal in that fight. First and third round, I have to give to Marquel Mederos. Austin Hubbard really just had control time and really just didn't do enough damage. And like we say, damage trumps all. And I feel like Marquel Mederos got the first and third round cleanly and looked absolutely phenomenal. And I'm excited to see his next fight. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Jamall Emmers versus Gabriel Miranda. And this one went exactly how I planned it. Jamall Emmers getting the knockout finish over Gabriel Miranda. Though Gabriel Miranda did land an early takedown and almost got a submission, close isn't close enough in this fight. I mean, we all know that. Close isn't close enough. Gabriel Miranda got close to the submission, but ultimately not close enough. Jamall Emmers was able to fend it off, fight back up to his feet, and ended up landing a brutal right hand on Gabriel Miranda, sitting him down, and had him running from him. Had him legitimately running from him. Gabriel Miranda was not able to really strike with him. He was kind of walking backwards. You could see Jamall Emmers really picking him and piecing him apart, walking him down, and ended up landing another brutal right. And this time he did not get up against the fence. Gabriel Miranda, as he was backing up trying to avoid Jamall Emmers' strike, ends up getting clipped by a clean overhand right and gets dropped flat on his back and knocked clean out from Jamall Emmers. And if you guys rode with me on this, Jamall Emmers was a confident pick along with the knockout call. I knew that Gabriel Miranda was a one-dimensional fighter, relied too much on the grappling side of things, and didn't bring enough of a striking threat. That's why I went with Jamall Emmers to knock out Gabriel Miranda, and it came to fruition exactly how I planned it. Jamall Emmers is a dog, and he showed that he is a stellar striker with that devastating knockout power and delivered the first round knockout over a one-dimensional Gabriel Miranda. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card, in which was another confident pick in Rafa García, in which Rafa García came out early and was starting to piece and pick apart Vinc Pichel early in this first round. His ability to close the distance and really get the better of his opponent in terms of inside boxing was showing here against Vinc Pichel. Vinc Pichel was looking slow and sluggish in the first round. He really wasn't landing that much. He had a couple of nice moments in that first round, but ultimately it was Rafa García being able to close that distance and being able to land some timely takedowns in the mix of his striking and getting the better of a Vinc Pichel in that first round. Then the second round comes along and there's a turn in tides. It's Vinc Pichel turning back to prime Anderson Silva and starting to completely outstrike Rafa García on the feet. His striking, it went from 1 to 100 in a matter of seconds. His striking in the second round was noticeably better. He was able to counter Rafa García. He was able to be a little bit more patient and a little bit more technical on the feet and outstrike and work a Rafa García in that second round. I believe he was up almost double the amount of significant strikes. I remember 32 to 13 at one point in that second round where Vinc Pichel was absolutely piecing and picking apart Rafa García, and it had me a little bit worried. I'm like, oh, the confident call. I thought Rafa García was going to be able to do a lot better. But then third round comes and you could see Vinc Pichel actually start fading. His gas tank was starting to dwindle. His cardio was starting to dwindle. He was starting to get tired, and you could see it in his fighting. He wasn't throwing as many strikes in terms of hands. He was throwing leg kicks mainly, and you don't win off of straight leg kicks. That third round, he was mainly just throwing leg kicks and was just getting pieced and picked apart on the feet. You could see Rafa García start to take over because Vinc Pichel was starting to fade and he was starting to get tired. Rafa García was starting to pressure him, starting to walk him down, starting to really eat away at that midsection of Vinc Pichel, and that's really what gave him the upper hand in this fight. His ability to mix it up to the head, to the body, and really get the better of a Vinc Pichel, ultimately winning via unanimous decision. And I believe it was 29-28. I don't agree with the 30-27 unanimous decision. Vinc Pichel 100% got that second round and was piecing and picking apart Rafa García. First and third, definitely got to go to Rafa García, but second, in no way, shape, or form, is Rafa García. Whoever scored this fight 30-27, I want whatever they're on, because that is absolutely ridiculous. And Rafa García is a phenomenal fighter, but did not win 30-27. He won via unanimous decision 29-28 over Vinc Pichel. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Godinez versus Julia Polastri. And I had Godinez. I thought Godinez was going to be a lot better than Julia Polastri, in which she completely was. I mean, Godinez fought Mackenzie Dern and Vierna Jayanroba before Julia Polastri. So I knew that this was going to be a step down in competition for her, and I thought she was going to be able to handle her, in which she did. The first two rounds were completely one-sided in the sense of Godinez completely getting the better of Julia Polastri. Her ability to mix it up in the striking and the grappling department really gave her the upper hand here. She was able to time some timely takedowns, mix in her combinations with her takedowns, and find success in both of them. And get the better of Julia Polastri, not only round one, but round two. Godinez, in terms of striking, she was picking apart Julia Polastri. She was able to land some nice, clean counters on the inside, not to mention landing some timely takedowns in some key situations and garnering that control time and getting the better of Julia Polastri rounds one and round two. Ultimately, Polastri looked phenomenal in that third round. I will give her credit for that third round. She was able to walk down Lupi Godinez and was willing to eat a shot to deliver a bigger shot. But ultimately, Lupi Godinez, with that iron grit toughness, was able to survive and was able to win via unanimous decision. But no knock on Polastri. I mean, she looked phenomenal. From her coming out of that fight against Corey McKenna to looking like this against a Lupi Godinez, she has tremendous skill and a lot of talent. And I think that as she develops, she is going to be one of the best women's fighters for sure, because her ability to just sit there, eat a punch, and really deliver some big blows back. I mean, she had Lupi Godinez in some tough moments in that third round. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was literally shaking in my boots in that third round because I thought Lupi Godinez was going to lose. But no, she ends up showing that she has that Mexican toughness and Mexican durability and ends up withstanding the onslaught of Julia Polastri and ends up winning via unanimous decision 29-28 over a Julia Polastri and looked absolutely phenomenal. Lupi Poopy for the win. If you guys don't remember that, Lupi ended up having to go to the bathroom in the last round, so they were calling her Lupi Poopy. But let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Christian Rodriguez versus Mexico Costa. And this was a banger. I mean, everybody was siding with the side of Christian Rodriguez because of the fact that he's taken out prospects like Cameron Saimon, Raul Rosas, Austin Bashi. He's beaten all those prospects, but let's not forget they are all prospects that are very one-dimensional at the time that Christian Rodriguez fought them. Here you have Costa, who is a very well-rounded striker, well-rounded grappler, and he showed that here against Christian Rodriguez. First round was a lot of clinching. It was kind of boring, but it was still Costa getting the better of Christian Rodriguez, landing some nice knees and some nice elbows in close as they were clinching and winning the first round, in my opinion. Then the second round comes, and you see Costa, again, getting the better of Christian Rodriguez, not only in the striking, but in the grappling. The scrambles from Christian Rodriguez as Costa had him on the ground were stellar. But Costa was able to transition a lot faster, ending up on top of Christian Rodriguez not once, not twice, but almost every single time. Costa is a dog. I don't know how so many people slept on him. He ended up coming into his debut against a Thiago Moises and was facing a lot better of competition than Christian Rodriguez. Christian Rodriguez is a prospect killer, yes. But if you look at Costa, he was a much better fighter, and he showed it here. And it's exactly how I thought it was going to happen. Not exactly, because I thought it was going to be via submission, but it ended up being decision. But Costa showed that he was the better striker, which I said. I thought he would use a little bit more of those high kicks, but no, he used the grappling, was able to get the better of a Christian Rodriguez, out-grapple him, out-strike him, and work him in the first and second round and get the better of him. I mean, Costa was a absolute savage pick in which he ended up showing out, and beating a Christian Rodriguez via unanimous decision, 29-28. And it was phenomenal. I wish he got that submission finish, but again, two highly talented prospects on both sides. I'm not mad about a decision, especially with Costa coming out on top and getting the victory over Christian Rodriguez. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Jose Medina versus Ateba Gautier, in which I, along with many of you guys, had Ateba Gautier, and by knockout as well as many of you guys. I mean, Jose Medina looked awful. He had a couple nice strikes, but ultimately it was Ateba Gautier landing a 1-2 down the middle, and we were all just waiting for that knockout shot to land, in which it was picture perfect knockout. Is a picture perfect knockout. Ateba Gautier landing the left, right, down the middle, had Jose Medina backing up, had him hurt, and then you could see Jose Medina backing up towards the fence, going like this, egging on Ateba Gautier, and Gautier is like, okay, I'm gonna come in close, ends up going in as Ateba Gautier comes in, throws a perfect knee up the middle, lands flush on Jose Medina's chin, and knocks him clean out on his back. It was absolutely phenomenal. Ateba Gautier looked clean and crisp in the striking department, landing some nice 1-2s down the middle before ultimately landing the picture-perfect knee to put Jose Medina flat out on his back, and looked absolutely phenomenal in his debut. And I'm hyped to see Ateba Gautier. I really want to see who they pair him up against next for his next fight. I will definitely be keeping an eye out on him, and you guys should definitely be keeping an eye out on him as well. But let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card, in the main card opener, in which was Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Kevin Boras. And man, oh man, am I excited to talk about this one, because my pick was Kevin Boras, and my pick and my call could not have been any better on this fight. Ronaldo Rodriguez is prone to shots down the middle, and Kevin Boras completely exploited that side of things. Kevin Boras was able to land a 1-2 down the middle in the first round, putting Ronaldo Rodriguez down, but Ronaldo Rodriguez was able to recover really well, but was still getting pieced up by that overhand right. Time and time again, Kevin Boras was able to seamlessly land that overhand right time and time again, and Ronaldo Rodriguez had no answer for it whatsoever. His head was not moving off the center line. His left hand was dropping a lot and was not covering the left side of his face, ultimately leaving him open for that overhand right, and was getting clipped by it time and time again, like I said. And that is why I ultimately went with Kevin Boras. Kevin Boras was being completely slept on. Ronaldo Rodriguez's biggest factor is the fact that he cannot move his head off the center line, and Kevin Boras is one of the most deadly has one of the most deadly 1-2s down the middle, in which he sat down Joshua Van with that, and I feel like many people are forgetting that fact. Not once, but twice. So he has devastating knockout power, and he showed it here against Ronaldo Rodriguez. He was able to absolutely tag and work Ronaldo Rodriguez straight down the middle, landing some nice knees up the middle, some nice 1-2s down the middle, and ultimately ended up getting the better of him all 3 rounds. All 3 rounds. Those straight shots down the middle had a huge effect on Ronaldo Rodriguez. Ronaldo Rodriguez also tried to grapple multiple times, but due to the fact that he was getting hit by these devastating shots down the middle, he was kind of panic shooting, trying to grapple, and was just not able to land any timely takedowns, and was not able to garner any control time, and ended up getting beat clearly by a Kevin Boras via unanimous decision 30-27, and I am hyped on that call. I am hyped. I chose the underdog, Kevin Boras, and he absolutely delivered with some nasty 1-2s down the middle, nasty knees down the middle, and got rid of the hype train on Ronaldo Rodriguez. And I am so hyped on that one, man. But let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card, in David Martinez versus Saimon Oliveira. And this one went exactly how I planned it as well. I mean, David Martinez going up against Saimon Oliveira, and Saimon Oliveira is one of the worst fighters. You're going to hear me say this multiple times until I don't have to talk about Oliveira anymore. He is awful. He is god-awful. He has the worst grappling, got absolutely out-grappled by Tony Gravely. The worst striking in the sense that he spams spinning back fist time and time again. And he showed that here. He was legitimately throwing spinning back fist after spinning back fist after spinning back fist on David Martinez, and was not able to land anything. He was not able to really even connect on David Martinez whatsoever. His striking is awful, and we saw that here. He leaves his chin up in the air and doesn't move his head off the center line, and we saw that here. David Martinez was able to piece and pick apart a Saimon Oliveira, who is just a one-dimensional fighter who relies too much on his grappling, and David Martinez completely exploited that. Completely exploited it. Was able to stand on the feet, was able to outstrike, outwork, outpick apart, and knock out a Saimon Oliveira who is completely garbage and mediocre, and is probably going to get released from the UFC for sure. And if you guys sided with me on the side of David Martinez, he was a confident pick along with the knockout, sitting at a plus 125 when I mentioned it. I love the side of David Martinez. I hope you guys join me on that and pick David Martinez because, man, oh man, he is a prospect on the rise with some nasty skill in terms of striking. I mean, we saw here against Saimon Oliveira, his ability to land that overhand right. He phased Saimon Oliveira. Then he followed it up with a knee after that and put Saimon completely out on his back, and then followed it up with some nice ground and pound. But ultimately, it was that knee up the middle that really ended it against Saimon Oliveira. And I mean, dude, the skills that David Martinez shows in his striking is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm hyped to see where he goes after this and who they pair him up with after this. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight in Raul Rojas Jr. versus Vince Morales. And I had Raul Rojas Jr. I thought he was going to be able to win this via decision, and that's exactly how it ended up happening. I thought Vince Morales was going to be a tough competitor, but the side of things that I did not see happening is how much grappling was used in this fight. I thought more striking was going to be used, in which the first round was Raul Rojas tagging Vince Morales early. He actually tagged him really, really well in the first round, but ultimately it was the grappling side of things that Raul Rojas did that really gave him the upper hand in that first round, out grappling a Vince Morales, controlling him on the ground, maintaining that control, advancing positions when he needed to, and getting some nice ground and pound as well. So that first round was completely Raul Rojas Jr. Second round comes along, and you could see Raul Rojas still being able to use the striking and the grappling and mixing them up really well together and finding some key takedowns and garnering some key time on top of Vince Morales. And he looked phenomenal. Every single time Vince Morales tried to scramble, you could see the quick transitions from Raul Rojas ending up on top every single time and getting the better of Vince Morales. Every single time. In which I did not see this much grappling going down. There was a ton of grappling in this match. Third round comes along. Even more grappling, in which Vince Morales almost had 2 submission finishes over Raul Rojas. He had him completely in a triangle lock and had him, like, his face was completely red. He was almost out of air, and you could see Raul Rojas was not trying to give up. He was not willing to give up. He was sitting in there. Eventually, Vince Morales lets go of the choke, doesn't have it fully locked in, and you could see Raul Rojas pop out, get the side control, garner that control time, get the better of Vince Morales. Morales almost had that submission and almost had one in the later of the third round, but either way, it just wasn't enough. It was a little too late, and it just wasn't enough to get the better of Raul Rojas, in which Raul Rojas got the better of Vince Morales in the grappling department and in the striking department, and ended up winning via unanimous decision 29-28 and looked phenomenal. I was hoping for more striking from Raul Rojas and Vince Morales, but we got a good grappling showcase in which Raul Rojas walks away with the unanimous decision 29-28 over Vince Morales. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Edgar Cháirez versus CJ Vergara. And this one was phenomenal. I mean, this was a great showcasing from Edgar Cháirez. He was honestly the lock of the week, if you want to call anybody. He destroyed CJ Vergara. He landed a brutal right hand that dropped CJ Vergara. You could see CJ Vergara kind of say that he shook it off, but you could see him still wobbled and still feeling the shots. Then a couple more shots go down, and then Edgar Cháirez lands a clean short elbow that has CJ Vergara dancing the chicken and has him backed up against the fence, ends up following him and starts landing some nice clean shots up against the fence before he ultimately grabs the neck of CJ Vergara and locks up the clean rear naked choke submission on CJ Vergara. I mean, this was a absolutely stellar performance for Edgar Cháirez. His ability to close the distance, land that knockout shot, drop CJ Vergara, then let him get back up, and then land a slicing short elbow, have him phased again, literally doing the chicken dance, then following him up, landing some nice shots up against the fence before ultimately grabbing the neck of CJ Vergara and choking him out. I mean, dude, Edgar Cháirez is a dog and a savage. That is somebody you should definitely be looking out for. Yes, he lost to Joshua Van, but again, Joshua Van is amongst the best of the best, and Edgar Cháirez had some moments in that fight. Edgar Cháirez is somebody you should not sleep on and should definitely be looking forward to his next fight, because I will be. And Edgar Cháirez puts on a dominant performance and wins via submission over a CJ Vergara. And let's go ahead and run it to the co-main event of the evening in Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober. And I had Manuel Torres over Drew Dober. I thought a knockout would happen. I did not think it would be so early. I thought it would be a little bit more of a back and forth war. But Manuel Torres showed that he is a lethal striker with devastating knockout power, and also his ability to use that length to the best of his ability and knock out his opponents. I mean, dude, Manuel Torres is somebody that is dangerous and that you should definitely be fearing in this division, because he is a menace to society. He absolutely mopped the floor with Drew Dober. He landed that one shot down the middle, had Drew Dober completely phased. Drew Dober, trying to survive, grabs the ankle of Manuel Torres. Then Manuel Torres starts hammer fisting the head of Drew Dober 15 times unanswered and just pummels him and gets the technical knockout finish. I mean, I will say the side of the reffing does need a little bit of a reprimand on that one. That was 15 unanswered shots to the side of Drew Dober when he was completely out and was just donezo. But either way, Manuel Torres came in, showed up, showed out, and delivered a impressive knockout over Drew Dober. I figured that Manuel Torres would learn from that last fight with Bahamondes, and he would be a lot more patient, in which he kind of showed it. He showed that he was more patient, more technical, and got the better of a Drew Dober via knockout in the first round and looked absolutely phenomenal. And let's go ahead and run it to the main event of the evening. If you guys haven't, make sure you guys like, subscribe, share the video, and let me know what you guys think of the video in the comments below. And also tune into the flock in the description, where we do members only lives, members only shorts, members only videos, and members only Discord, where we do UFC bets every Wednesday. We all get into a call, give our UFC bets, and tell each other why we give them. So make sure you guys join the flock in the description below, and let's go ahead and jump right back into this main event with Brandon Moreno versus Steve Erceg. And the pick for me was Brandon Moreno. Like I said, he was the lock of the week, and he ended up delivering against Steve Erceg. In the first round, he showed up, showed out, and was landing a nice overhand right on Steve Erceg, along with a clean inside hook as well, and was able to completely exploit Steve Erceg with those two, and was able to close the distance and really piece him apart, and looked absolutely phenomenal. Second round, you could see a little bit of a tide change. Steve Erceg honestly started to pick up with his striking and was kind of starting to set up his striking a little bit better and started to find success in hitting Brandon Moreno. But other than that, it was still Brandon Moreno able to kind of adverse from that second round and start piecing and picking apart Steve Erceg, really starting to walk him down, land that overhand right time and time again, really picking apart Steve Erceg and really pressuring him and putting a pace that he just ultimately could not keep up with throughout the entire 5 rounds, and ended up winning via unanimous decision 49-46, in which I called Brandon Moreno being the better fighter. He just beat Amir Albazi before Steve Erceg and looked absolutely stellar in the striking department. Even in this fight against Steve Erceg, who is known to be a devastating striker, got picked and pieced apart against Brandon Moreno. So, I mean, you got to give Brandon Moreno his credits. He is a savage that has progressively been improving time and time again. He has not fought Pantoja once, twice, but 3 times, and he's looking to make another title shot run, and I believe he deserves it. He is coming in and beating these contenders time and time again, and showing that he is a highly skilled and highly touted fighter with some tremendous skills in terms of striking and grappling. So got to give Brandon Moreno his credits. And like I said, he was a lock of the week, and he ends up coming in clutch, getting the unanimous decision 49-46 over a Steve Erceg in Mexico City, and delivered to the home crowd. I gotta say, I mean, dude, Brandon Moreno, I'm hyped. I really want to see him fight for the title a fourth time, because he's so good at adversing and becoming better and honestly winning in general. He is somebody that is just so gritty and so tough and not willing to give up, and will just constantly work to get back to the same spot. And I think Brandon Moreno deserves a title shot. I really do. I'm hyped to see what his next fight is. But other than that, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.